world. But look around, a nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Dewberry, this is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here. GB News,
Britain's news channel.
News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, this is GB News, and up next it's The Late Show Live, hosted by the one and only Bev Turner, live from Washington, D.C. Bev, what's coming up on the show?
Hi, Alex. Well, we're going to be bringing you, of course, the latest from the stabbing situation in the UK. As we learn it, we're going to be talking to some former police officers about that. And here in DC, they have a rather novel way of dealing with disruption, and particularly on Halloween. You get these massive groups of young people, basically not even being particularly violent, but disorderly behaviour. So what they do now is they say, right, well, you've all got to be home in bed by 11 o'clock. You're not allowed out on the streets. And I'd love to know whether the British viewers would be in support of such a thing. And I'm really torn, as I'm sure you are, as a true libertarian, about the idea that the government could tell my 17-year-old, well-behaved 17-year-old, that she would have to be at home. It fundamentally alters that relationship, doesn't it, between the state and the family, which I normally want to dial down on. But when you've got disruption and disorderly antisocial behaviour, we've got to do something, Alex.
I totally agree, and I think this is where America's so unique, isn't it? Because you've got states, and in those states sometimes you don't have these massive populations. Like, I don't know how you do it in London. How would you do it? We don't have the police, we don't have a National Guard. I partially like the idea, Bev, because I think that young people are just running wild now. There is no authority left. But on the other hand, again, I have that libertarian drive to say, get the government away from me as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, really, why should you punish the kids who are well-behaved because of the actions of those who aren't? I mean, I am worried, I'm sure you are, in the aftermath of this awful stabbing attack on the train yesterday. The solution's going to be, well, you're going to have to tap your digital ID in and out, aren't you, every time you get onto a train or a bus? Well, that is not the solution, because that is also with presumption of guilt of everybody until proven innocent, and I don't like that direction of travel. Alex, good to see you, my friend. See you soon. Stay with us here. This is The Late Show Live. On The Late Show Live tonight.
Counter-terrorism policing were initially supporting our investigation. However, at this stage, there is nothing to suggest that this
Heroic rail staff member is fighting for his life after a mass stabbing attack on a Cambridgeshire train. A 32-year-old man is being held on suspicion of attempted murder. We'll have the very latest developments here on GB News. Also, a rise in youth crime. You're seeing pictures there from Halloween. Well, it's plunged Washington, D.C. into disorder, leading the mayor to impose a juvenile curfew. Would you support similar measures in the UK? We're going to be diving this evening headfirst into the stories from tomorrow's papers, hours before they hit the shelves. We are live, of course, in Washington, D.C., just yards from the White House, bringing you the stories that America is talking about and that matter to Britain too, including this. She's such a wally, isn't she? Meghan Markle releasing footage of her and Prince Harry celebrating the World Series baseball. Fans are asking, was it staged? Harry looked like he was a bit embarrassed by it all, to be honest. I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. So in breaking news tonight, a 35-year-old from London has been released from custody with no further action following last night's stabbing in Huntingdon on that train. British Transport Police have said that a 32-year-old man is now being treated as the only suspect. Officials are saying that the British national boarded the Doncaster to London King's Cross service at Peterborough, and authorities say that the heroic rail staff member who tried to stop the attack remains in a life-threatening condition. 5 others have been discharged from hospital. Meanwhile, the train driver, who's been credited with saving lives by quickly diverting the London-bound train to Huntingdon Station after the alert was raised, has been identified as Andrew Johnson, a Royal Navy veteran who served in Iraq. And British Transport Police say this is not being treated, I remind you, as terror-related. Let's talk to the former head of counter-terrorism at the City of London, Kevin Hurley. Now, Kevin, very good evening to you. For people who are just tuning in, or for our audience here in America, this doesn't necessarily come as a surprise that it isn't terror-related from what some of the police officers we were talking to last night. But what's your opinion on it? Are you surprised that it wasn't terrorist-related?
No, I've always thought it was one of two things. Either it was, in fact, so many of us did, a terrorist attack, or that was a mentally disordered person suffering from psychosis. And it would appear, from what we're hearing, that the other theory of mine is probably bearing true. Because, of course, cannabis-induced psychosis is a significant problem amongst some members of the Caribbean community who've abused that drug. So, you know, that's potentially the other route here, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. What will the counter-terrorism police have been doing in the last 24 hours to ascertain, Kevin, that they could rule out any terror motive?
I don't know if they've actually ruled it out as such. I think what they're saying is that there's no evidence that it's terror-related. But to answer your question, the first thing they'll be doing is attempting to interview this guy. Obviously, we have a solicitor present, and it may or may not be helpful in that the solicitor may well say to him, say no comment. That takes them no further. But then they were trying to do background inquiries on who he is, where he lives, has he got a mobile phone, what can the mobile phone tell us, search his house and so on, which will enable them to see if there is any possibility that there is a terrorist link to it. If you remember with Axel Rubicana, the chap who did the terrible murders of the little dancing schoolgirls in Southport, police very quickly discovered that he had Islamist jihadist documentation on his computer, and also he had elements of how to make ricin poison in his possession, although they later decided it wasn't a terrorist-based attack. But bottom line is they will be trying to turn over as many stones as they can to get to the bottom of what the motive of this is, because of course this is such a potentially politically charged event at this difficult time in the UK, where feelings of some people are on tenterhooks, and we're on the knife edge in some ways about what people think about what's going on in the country in terms of personal security for us all.
It feels a little bit like echoes of Kalakane, the Nottingham stabber, who was known to mental health services. We don't know in this instance, we don't know anything about this man, and he's in custody. But the case of Kalakane, who stabbed the university students in Nottingham, of course, was known to mental health services, hadn't taken schizophrenia medication, had avoided being apprehended on multiple occasions, had a history of crime and petty crime as well. What do you do in that situation, Kevin? Because the inquiry into that, so many people were at fault, actually, and so many systemic failures of taking care of people, getting them out of the community if they're a danger.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, it all stemmed from the drive by governments to save money and cut secure mental health places, of course, because the the mental hospitals that once existed where you could keep people who are a threat to us all securely locked up have all been closed to save money, and everything is now sacrificed on the altar of let's get these people back living in the community and give them antipsychotic drugs. Of course, if those people won't take the drugs, the sanctions and systems in place to make sure they do are not perhaps as strong as they would want to. And of course, lots of health workers, understandably, do not want to say, no, this person needs to be locked up for the benefit of all of us, because, health workers are caring people. So we've got that ongoing problem. I actually, years ago, had a very similar problem. Once I got on a commuter train early in the morning to come up to London in my suit with coffee and newspaper in hand in Southampton Parkway, where I went to sit down on the only empty seat on the train, only to see the guy in the seat next to it saying to everyone, no one's sitting there, no way, no one's sitting there. To which I thought, well, you're not telling me I'm not going to sit there. To which I did. And I then discovered I was sitting next to someone who was a mentally disordered person. And one thing led to another. And I eventually had to arrest him and fight him on the floor of the commuter train, which they did very similarly, ran the train on into the next station for police to attend. But this was a guy who had a history of violence, a history of arson, and was not taking his antipsychotic drugs because he thought he was fine. So, unfortunately, it could happen to any of us that you could end up with a person like that. And the disturbing thing for so many people is this just an evening train ride down to London for people perhaps going to visit relatives or for a night out in London. And then they're suddenly faced with this horror.
Yeah, end of half-term week, Kevin. There will have been a lot of people and probably children on a Saturday evening returning down south.
Probably.
So thank you. So interesting. Thank you. Kevin Hurley there, former head of counter-terrorism at the City of London. Let's bring in my panel this evening and say hello to US commentator and Democrat Party strategist Bob Weiner is with us. Evening, Bob.
It's a pleasure. I'd ask, where are the mags? Where are the metal detectors?
Well, we'll come on to that. Hang on, let me introduce it to you as well. Victoria Churchill from the Daily Mail. Victoria, good to see you. Where are the metal detectors? That's your solution, is it?
It's a solution. I mean, they're everywhere in the United States, and they work, and they're not a big deal to put in.
You see, we don't have the space that you have, Bob, and what I've noticed here in Washington...
On the entrance to a train?
Oh, no, we don't. Trust me, we've got Victorian infrastructure, especially the tube in London. We already have queues at peak times where people are trying to get through the turnstile to click their card in or their pass, Victoria, their ticket.
That would have done it, though.
We just don't have the... But you could be carrying something metal in your... does that mean no... can of Coke in your pocket?
Empty your pockets of your cell phones.
I'd love to think it's that easy. It's not, is it, Victoria?
It's what we do.
No, I don't think it's that easy. I mean, there was a case here, I believe in this greater D.C. area up in Maryland just a few weeks ago. They tried to install a scanner in a school, and it set off on a bag of chips that somebody had in their pocket.
With a foil lining, probably, anything metallic.
Stuff happens.
And so, I think that as much security as institutions want to put in, at the end of the day, it is incumbent upon every single person to keep themselves and their families safe. We've talked even on this show just a couple weeks ago about how even the U.S. Secret Service couldn't keep, a hunter's sniper's nest being set up down in Florida from where President Trump's plane lands to go to Mar-a-Lago. And so, if you have the best security forces in the world and they cannot keep safe some of the most highly visible individuals, what are everyday Joe Schmoes and Sally Jane supposed to do?
We talked about this last show. They needed to do concentric circles going around in short distance, and they would have found that deer stand.
But you see, here in D.C., what I love, Bob, is the National Guard on every corner.
Well,
we've got the voluntary, the semi-voluntary, sort of amateur army force, isn't it? I guess it's fair to describe them as, and they are so visible here that would not have happened on the train in Cambridge yesterday.
Maybe,
we'd had people in the carriage.
Headline in the Washington Post: National Guard members trained for civil unrest missions in U.S. cities because Trump wants to block the 2026 elections. So that's what he's getting ready for, and everybody knows it. So you can't abuse the system either.
We don't know that. I mean, we don't know.
Oh, we do. He said it in his speech. He said, we need safe elections and we're sending the Guard to train in our cities. He said it.
But that doesn't mean that he's going to cancel the elections in 2026.
Cancel,
what do you mean then?
Harass and intimidate.
Harass and intimidate.
Yes, that's what I mean.
What Donald Trump
and I did
is
a
going
piece
to
that was
harass
in the
and
number 2
intimidate.
op-ed in the country about how the pro-democratic forces must prepare. And so Chris Van Hollen, I was at an event with him, he came out and read my piece, and he said, we got to get the lawyers ready.
Do we think that the National Guard here in America is to stop people protesting come 2026 elections?
No, I think this has nothing to do with the 2026 election. It has to do with the fact that people are absolutely crazy. They don't know how to behave themselves. And so the only way to keep our nation's capital safe, unfortunately, as the Trump administration has found out, has been to have these National Guard troops. Now, again, you're talking about more libertarian forms of government. I tend to lean more on that spectrum myself. And, I think people should be able to live in areas where they have rights as well as privileges. And, you're talking about with your 17-year-old daughter, obviously, I think by the way that most of our jurisprudence is here in the U.S., 18 is when we consider most people to be adults. Yeah. Whether that's right or not, that's a debate for another day. But, intrinsically, right, if you're in a school, you intrinsically give up some of your constitutional rights. Again, maybe shouldn't be that way, but that's just the situation that we are at currently.
Yeah.
And so the only way to go through with this is to have this kind of, pact, whether that's official or unofficial, of saying, when I'm in this space, I'm going to behave this way. And if I don't behave this way, in order for both my own good and for the good of those around me, there has to be some other security. Now, again, coming as an American, I think it should be more upon each individual to exercise those rights and to keep themselves safe. But again, in places like Washington, D.C., I've talked on this show before about firearms ownership. There's national limitations on firearms ownership around federal property. So even though I would love to bring a gun with me on my way to work, I can't because I work within, I think it's, 500 yards or so of the White House. And so even if I wanted to, even if I have my carry permit in D.C. or in Virginia, there's other, higher laws that I can't break.
So back to the situation in the UK, though, we have had several instances of people being stabbed, losing their life. We don't have guns, thank goodness. And these often follow a similar pattern, as I was saying there, somebody that's known to mental health services, that in a different generation would, or different, even just like 4 decades ago maybe, would have been in some sort of institutional setting for the safety of themselves and other people. Do you have something similar here in the US? Or we had this care in the community, so they were all closed down, people were at home, and there was some merit to not keeping people locked up. But what's the situation here in America with that sort of
Well, you can't get everybody. You can't figure out everybody. A lot of these killings, and some of our recent ones, are first-timers. Charlie Kirk was a first-timer, the guy who did that. So it's impossible to guess on mental health alone. And I hate the people that say, it's not the guns, it's the people. And you've got to go after the weapons, and that is the big debate in the United States.
Yeah.
And when Clinton and Gore did the Brady bill and banned assault weapons, we didn't have the mass murders for a while there. It was a 30% drop in mass murders. I did a piece on it. We found that 19 out of the 20 cities we surveyed that had 10 or more, this is killings. I'm so sorry for what you lost in terms of injuries of 11 people. But when we have a mass event, it's 10 people killed and up to 60 or more, like was in Las Vegas. So you've got to go after the AK-47s, the AR-15s, and that's one of our strategies in the United States.
Well, you're not even allowed to carry mace in the UK. You can't carry a knife under any circumstances. So it's the one thing that I have to say we do a lot better than you guys here. gbnews.com/your say to let me know your thoughts this evening. I'd love to hear from you, and particularly on this issue we're going to discuss in a minute about whether you should have curfews for teens. Still to come on The Late Show Live. So that was a skirmish, a Halloween skirmish on Friday night, and Washington DC's mayor has slapped a 4-night curfew on under 18s, kicking in immediately after that. Would you like to see similar in the UK? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
John Mandami, 34-year-old Democratic socialist. He's the
communist, not socialist, communist. He's far worse than a socialist.
Some people have compared him to a left-wing version of you, charismatic, breaking the old rules. What do you think about that?
Well, I think I'm a much better looking person than him, right?
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. That was President Donald Trump talking about New York's mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani. They've got the election on Tuesday. We will be covering it here. I mean, it's absolutely huge. More on that in just a minute. But first of all, I think you'll like this. And the inbox already is a lot of you getting involved in this debate. Chaos on the streets of Washington, D.C. To be honest, by British standards, it was fairly tame, in my opinion. It was Halloween, and it's forced the mayor to take drastic action. She's declared the city a curfew zone for under 18s. Now, this is an emergency order, comes after this brawl in the area called the Navy Yard here in DC on Friday night. Police say it threatened public safety. Have a look. That's a big green sort of common area, communal area, and all those people there, if you're watching in the green uniforms, they are of course the National Guard. They look like forces to all intents and purposes, and there was a lot of them, as you could see, teenagers running everywhere. Well, these teenagers, because of that misbehaviour, they've now been banned from going out between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. This is something that happens whenever there are youth-fuelled disturbances and violent clashes across the capital. Mayor Muriel Bowser says the curfew will run for 4 nights, and she says it's about protecting lives, not punishing kids. Effective immediately, she said on X, all juveniles, it's gone. Let's get the take of former FBI Special Agent James Hamilton. James, good evening. Thank you for joining me. Now, this is a radical policy to us Brits. We don't have anything like this, and it would really clash with this idea that the state should stay out of family life and let us get on with parenting. But also, sometimes it's quite nice to have the help of the state on certain issues when it comes to controlling children. Is it controversial here? How long has this been a policy that states can enact?
Hey, good to see you. It's been a while for them. DC's done this a couple of times, and going back in the 90s, they started to do this, and it's not all the time, but it's one of these little, well, it's a lever or a tool that the mayor can use in, like you said, in extreme circumstances. I agree with you. I thought the video looked rather tame, but she decided to take this step, and we'll see what happens. This could go one of two ways, but I applaud her courage for making a decision. But it's going to be interesting, and it's difficult to enforce, by the way.
I was just going to say, how easy is it to enforce? Because there was 4 youngsters were arrested here, one 18-year-old and 3 of them were under 18. One of the special guard got pushed over but wasn't actually hurt. I mean, genuinely, it sounds fairly tame. It was Halloween. They're all high on sweets and sugar and candy, if not anything else, to be completely honest, what it smells like when you're walking down the pavement here in DC. I don't know what I was going to say then. I got lost thinking about sweeties and candy and whether they were all high. But it's a difficult situation to police. That's what I was going to say. How do they enforce it, James?
Right. Unlike, in London with the Met, this is a multi-agency type of situation you've got on the streets of D.C. I was just there, and yeah, you have MPD, which is the Metropolitan Police Department, the D.C. uniformed police that you're used to seeing. But like, for instance, at Halloween night, they had the Capitol Police, National Guard, and then there's this federal task force that's walking around, and that's FBI, DEA, U.S. Marshals, ATF. So it's a recipe for a lot of confusion. For one, not shared tactics. Two, you see in the video National Guardsmen running after kids. It gets very dicey here. MPD or uniform officers who arrest people on the daily, they're pretty good at it, and they know how to do these things. They have tactics, but it all changes when you start to employ the military and other federal agencies to arrest children for violating a curfew. So, luckily, last 2 nights we haven't any real bad violence, but, it could set off something obviously very, very quickly if, people lose their minds and don't act appropriately and use too much force, and it's a recipe for sure.
Let's bring in Bob and Victoria here in the studio, because I think it's such a good debate point, this. Victoria, as you said, you're like me, a kind of libertarian at heart, but are you on board with this as a special measure to make the streets safer after dark? And also, it also, you could argue, is safer for the teenagers, because they're not out there potentially getting themselves into trouble.
Well, first off, I was always taught as a kid that nothing good happens after midnight, and so an 11 p.m. curfew would kind of align with that, that you always had to be home before midnight, because afterwards nefarious things happened. But I also want to talk about this curfew has been implemented. We had one over the summer here in DC, but also just from my own personal experience, I live in Arlington, Virginia, just across the way from DC, and I go to the mall, for example, and there's been teenagers in the past that will throw food onto the food court from 3 stories up because they come in gangs of 6 to 10 people. Before we just recently here in DC, we elevated the barriers onto the metro, but before that they would jump across them all the time. They still do that now. Some of them have very high jumps, so they will still evade fares. So there's a track record with certain individuals that have a track record of law breaking. They're not being punished, right? Just fare evasion. There is a sign on every single metro station on multiple entrances that fare evasion is a crime. if you don't persecute that, then they get kind of emboldened, I believe, to create further chaos and to potentially eventually lead to actually serious crimes. And also we have examples from DC in the past couple of years where teenagers have committed serious crimes and they have not been tried as adults, particularly thinking of an Uber driver that was basically murdered by 2 teenagers, and those teenagers, as far as I remember, did not get the sentence that an adult would. And so, on one hand, you want to have adult rights, but you also don't want to have adult responsibilities. And so until those 2 things are considered even, one has got to give. And, in this case, the freedoms give because people don't understand what those responsibilities are in most cases.
Bob, is this the result of a Biden government that got very soft on discipline over several years, and that the kids no longer respect authority?
Oh, let's not start blaming Joe Biden for the little recess screeching, basically, which is what it's the equivalent of, that a principal has to deal with every day when the kids are out in the yard. So I think that's a little ridiculous. I do think that, I love you, but I had to say that.
Okay,
right?
I'm all right, I've got to think.
I think that actually it's more a result, what Bowser did, of the fact that she wants to look a little tough for Trump and be a little supportive of him. So that's where the politics really plays into this. And I do think that, by the way, that she has every right to do a curfew and that it works, and parents welcome the help. And I'm surprised that you haven't used curfews more, if that's the story.
We don't have this in the UK ever.
Kids don't screech in recess?
Kids are out of control in the UK. We've got
You amazingly have 2 of them, 17 and 22.
Yeah, I've got 3 of them, but mine are very well behaved, let me tell you. Oh, she says, with her fingers crossed. But actually, you've got very similar things here. You've got these bikes that you can book on your phone, which are fairly cheap and are the criminals' best accessory, aren't they? Because they can just bomb around on these bikes. They are wayward in the UK. They've all got masks on now because apparently that was normal during COVID. So everyone's got their faces covered up, and that gives them a level of power and sort of anonymity, which they're delighted about, James. And I think, just last point to you then, as a former FBI special agent, this idea that minor crime, as Victoria was saying, escalates if you don't nip it in the bud, you end up with adults then, the children who grow up into adults who are committing serious crime. We got to clamp down on kids.
Yeah, you definitely see that. If you talk to criminals, they didn't just start when they became 21, 22-year-olds, at least not my experience. I would say one nice thing about this curfew is that if they do catch somebody and the penalty is not just them paying a fine or doing some type of community service or time, but the parent is held accountable as well. And it's like $500 and it goes up from there. But, that's when you start to see parents being held responsible for the actions of their children, now you're getting somewhere, I think. I think it's always a misstep if you're trying to hold a child to something and the parent has no skin in the game, if you will. So that's a good thing. But I agree with the lady's comment about, they start young and you need to get them while you can and let them know that there are consequences. And we do live in the rule of law here in the U.S., and we need to follow it. That's what we do here.
Well, in the UK, we've never had more laws than we have now, but we've also never had so much crime and so much violent crime. And it does feel like the fabric of society is just torn incredibly thin at the moment, made worse, I have to say, since 2020, since lockdown rules, with these teenagers particularly. We kept them in their bedrooms, we got them hooked on their devices, and also hooked on a lot of marijuana as well. It's the same in London as it is here, and somehow we have to fix all of that, Victoria. How do we start to we have to help kids as well as punishing them. We have to understand that a lot of these kids went through a lot and they've never even got their careers or their education back on track.
Well, that's a good question. Last year, during the election, Kamala Harris came under fire when, during one rally, she said, these are our kids. And parents, particularly on the right, got mad, saying, you actually don't have your own children. You're a stepmother, but you actually have never parented a child from, birth up up to adulthood. So you going out, Kamala Harris, and saying that these are our kids, you have very little knowledge of what it is like to parent. And, you know, I think that really underscores the level of the debate that we have, right? Is it the state's children or are these parents' children? And what degree are parents parenting? And to what degree, you know, are communities do communities have to raise children, raise youth? And, you know, in COVID, obviously it impacted the younger generation, I think, greatly. But I also think that just the fabric of society, people are reliant a lot less on each other, you know, on neighbors. You know, my husband, who grew up in the UK, you know, he tells me all the time about some of his great childhood friends whose, you know, parents maybe worked late, and his mom would know, you know, so-and-so got off the bus and got home, and, you know, the parents would kind of look out for one another, and, you know, the parents would always know each other. They would know all the kids in the neighborhood. They would check in on each other. You know, I just don't know if maybe we don't have that neighborhood structure in a lot of cities in the U.S. because we're so spread out in suburbs versus, you know, my husband grew up in a row of attached houses, so maybe just that kind of physical distance contributes to that as well. But you know, I think that is just kind of a greater society of this community policing in terms of, you know, this interwoven fabric versus the government coming in and telling people what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob, last word?
Well, I was the spokesman for the White House Drug Office for 6 years and also the House Narcotics Committee for another 6 years. And I learned a little something, and that is that parenting is the key. That the kitchen table is where you can teach your children the values that they should have. And that's the most important thing you can do, is have a gathering with your family and to tell them about not only marijuana but alcohol and also behavior. And if you do that, it goes a long way towards solving the problem.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. It's a good note to end on. Thank you so much, former FBI Special Agent James Hamilton, joining us there. You at home have been getting in touch, and I completely get it. Says, well-behaved 17-year-old Bev, she's telling you lies about my daughter. I think it's a brilliant idea if it's out of control. Curfews, if implemented and parents are non-compliant, then jail the parents. A life on benefits, stop the lot. Rats all masked up on bikes, yobs, drunk and violent. Curfew, fantastic idea. Well, keep your thoughts coming this evening. gbnews.com/your say. Still to come on The Late Show Live, we're going to take a look at tomorrow's front pages in just a moment, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The defense wants to ban cameras in the courtroom. How do you feel about that?
There were cameras all over my husband when he was murdered.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. That was Erica Kirk there during her first sit-down interview since the death of her husband, Charlie Kirk. Although when I say first sit-down interview, it seems like she's never been off the internet, to be frank. We're going to be talking about that in just a moment. First of all, let's have a look at some of the newspaper front pages. The Independent is leading with the news of the heroic train worker fighting for his life after the stabbing rampage. Police hold British man after mass knife attack, but rule out terrorism. The Metro is leading on the scandal of risky high street baby scans. Calls for law changes. Real illnesses are missed and mums are told that healthy unborns have died. I've been warning about that for about 10 years. Nice to see you've caught up, Metro. The Telegraph are saying the devil is not going to win. This is what the train attacker apparently told passengers. And The Guardian are leading on again, the heroic rail worker fighting for his life after tackling the train knife attacker. As we've heard, he was in the forces in Iraq. And the New York Times are leading on New York City's candidates for mayor being fanned out across the city on Sunday, delivering closing messages at churches and rallies and urging supporters to cast their ballots on the last day of early voting before Election Day, which is on Tuesday here in America. And the Washington Post are telling us that Americans broadly disapprove of President Donald Trump's job performance, and a majority believe that he overstepped his presidential powers, according to a Washington Post ABC News Ipsos poll. Get in touch this evening, gbnews.com/your say. A lot of you are getting involved in that debate about whether teenagers should be subject to a state-induced, a government, a mayoral in this case, induced curfew. Guy says many of these parents are just juvenile-minded themselves. And David has said, I would welcome a curfew on our teenagers. It might just sort out antisocial behaviour. One of my daughters has recently given up teaching after 14 years as successive governments have watered down education, and we now have feral parents bringing up feral children. Nobody can fail an exam. Parents are abusive, and my daughter is fed up with being kicked and sworn at many times a day without any backup. Terrible, David, but I'm sure that is absolutely true. Right, let's bring in comedian Paul Cox down in London in our GB News studios over there. Paul, great to see you as always. Lovely to have you on. Can I ask you, you've got a daughter similar age, teenage curfew. If she'd been behaving on Halloween and yet there was a big brawl or a mass disruptive event in your area and the mayor said, sorry, Junior Cox, you can't go out now after 11 o'clock at night. You've got to stay at home. How would she take it?
Oh, it'd be such a shame with my daughter because she's a good kid. I'm sure your daughters are very well behaved as well, but she genuinely is a good kid, which is probably something I wasn't at her age, which is sort of 16. I think she would... I don't know how she would take it, to be honest. She's normally home by about that time, and kids don't go out in the same ways that we did, Bev, when we were younger. They just don't. I mean, they may well do in this area of DC in particular, but my daughter's not out at that time of night. They don't socialise in the same way as we used to. Most of it's done online.
Well, it makes you wonder, maybe that's the point. The kids who are out under 18 after 11 o'clock at night are maybe the ones who've got weak parents who aren't making them stay home after that time of night. So maybe the government should step in. But are you comfortable, though, with the government being able to tell innocent 16, 17-year-olds, you've got to be at home. I'm really conflicted by it. I can't lie, Paul. I'm troubled by that concept.
Me too. I think much like you, Bev, I am for small government. I don't like big government. I didn't like what happened during COVID. I didn't like being told what to do with my body, what to do with my time, where I must be. I don't expect that for young adults either. That said, we all know that we've all seen antisocial behaviour wherever we've lived, wherever we've grown up. I just think that the nub of the issue sits with the parents. I don't really want to see a society where we rely on the government for almost anything other than keeping us safe, which governments are failing to do, running the economy well, which governments are failing to do. The last thing I want them to be doing is interfering in my personal life or my family life. And we should be teaching, should we be teaching? I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this. We should be teaching adults how to be good parents.
Yeah, I know. But again, listen to us. What's happened to us that we're now saying we should be teaching parenting? I think we need to have a little lie down in a dark room. Not together, Paul. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I feel like we need to have a lie down in a dark room and really just like give our heads a wobble and work out where we sit on this. Because sometimes it is good for the state to help us as parents. Sometimes, like I always think of seatbelts. Seatbelts is the best thing in terms of the government getting involved with our parenting. Because when your children are, wriggling around when they're little in the back of the car, and you say, "Well, if you don't put your seatbelt on, Mummy's going to get arrested," they put their seatbelt on. There are some instances where we like the communal agreement on safety measures for our children, but it just bothers me under this government. I don't want to give Starmer any more power to tell my kids what to do.
No, and I think perversely he would enjoy that, or his type of government would enjoy that. The type of politician and man that Keir Starmer is, that's where he gets his kicks. And we've seen that from, you've only got to look at Southport and the way he behaved in his first few months as Prime Minister. He thoroughly enjoyed that. And that has reflected incredibly badly on him. And I think the very insightful thing is, at the time, I think he thought he was being the greatest leader the UK had ever seen. Subsequently, nearly every problem we've had societally since then has stemmed from his decisions then. Clamping down on people, saying they were guilty for things before they'd even been convicted, and sending people down for 18 months for tweets. None of this is good. It's not a good look, but he thought it was.
Just briefly, Paul, a word on the heroes which always emerge in the aftermath of these events. This train worker fighting for his life. Hero is the word. We'd like to think that any of us would step in the event of something like that, but we can't be sure that we would.
Yes, I'd like to think I would, but you just cannot be sure. I don't know. I mean, I've never been in that situation, and I pray to God neither of us ever are, Bev. But yes. Obviously, I want to praise them. Very well done, and thank you. But I have spent the last 24 hours being fairly angry about this. They do not need to be in that position. We could have prevented this. We know this stuff happens. We know who is likely to commit this kind of stuff. We have been sold the dream of multiculturalism, and it's turned into a nightmare. That does not mean skin colour. That does not even mean religion. It means that we have an incumbent culture in this country which has been forgotten and been replaced by something none of us agree with, none of us want, and they don't like us.
We've also been sold the idea that people with mental illness who should be medicated for extreme psychotic behaviour should be living and walking amongst us. And I am absolutely bang back on board with the idea that we bring back institutions which keep these people safe from themselves and also keep other people safe from them.
Well, absolutely, and you see it all the time. Bev, I'm not sure where you live. I spend a lot of time in London. I was in Crouch End earlier today. There was a man walking down the streets just shouting loudly at women, OK? Just shouting randomly and loudly at women only. That guy is obviously a troubled guy, and he needs support and help. But what he doesn't need is to be on the streets scaring the living daylights out of people, and goodness only knows what he might do. We don't need to feel sorry for these people. because by feeling sorry for them, we weaken ourselves and just allow them to be in society, where it's not safe for anybody. We have to have this brothers keepers mentality where we all look out for one another. And the Victorians had a fairly good idea about this, and I know we support mental health in much more effective ways now, but people that are a danger to themselves and a danger to the public around them need to be taken off of the streets.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Just very briefly, did you go to a Halloween party, Paul?
I did not go to a Halloween party this time. My daughter, as a 16, 17-year-old, went and spent her time with friends. I don't have any other children, and it just looks weird if I go trick-or-treating on my own, Bev.
Well, I'm going to show you some pictures from Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago Halloween party in just a minute, and they have been quite controversial. See you in a bit, Paul. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Stay with us.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Not the names of the three candidates.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live here in Washington, D.C. Now, Donald Trump threw a lavish Halloween party on Friday night for his MAGA pals in Mar-a-Lago. Have a look. He was photographed at the resort hosting a Great Gatsby-themed big do there, surrounded by champagne, feathers and flapper dancers. Here we go. That That looks really fun. If you're listening on the radio, they've got the burlesque girls with the feathers. The official theme was a little party, never killed nobody. And attendees included Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Ivanka and Tiffany Trump as well. And lots of very pert bottoms, Bob Wiener, top high heels and corsets. What do you think of that?
I think it's glitter in the midst of a shutdown where you have people not getting food and health care. And there is a way out of that shutdown, and he's paying no attention to it. And it would work for him. It would work for the Congress people, the Republicans in the House and the Senate, and Democrats in the House and Senate. What you do is you have two votes. One that gives the Republicans exactly what they want, which is you open the government first, and then a consecutive vote that where you provide the food and the health care benefits so that the Republicans don't get their hats handed to them in the off-year elections, which right now they will.
There is no doubt that is the strangest voiceover to those pictures that we ever could have imagined. Victoria talking about the shutdown. So,
well, it's a contrast.
But for the British people who don't really, we aren't living the shutdown. It's quite hard to understand. Your objection is that there's a party there that has cost lots of money, and as Donald Trump said, a party never killed nobody. That's the idea of the thing. That isn't taxpayers' money, though. That's Mar-a-Lago. He is free to spend his money and his Republican money on whatever he wants. If he wants girls in corsets with their bombs out, he can do that.
I'm sorry. I take the Jeffries and the Schumer positions that he should be working on ending the shutdown so that people get their food and their health care. He shouldn't be doing this kind of nonsense right now.
Victoria, is it this kind of nonsense that means people aren't getting their food stamps here in America?
No. Bob, first question for you. How many votes in the Senate are needed to pass a government funding package?
60.
And how many Republicans currently have seats in the U.S. Senate?
And how many presidents?
You didn't answer.
How many presidents could get all?
I didn't hear an answer, Bob.
Trump controls all the Republican votes.
And how many Democrat votes are needed to pass a government funding package?
The Democrats are absolutely right.
You just said Trump controls all the Republicans. He doesn't control
Democrats. Democrats are right to fight for food and health care. And that's what the people want. And by the way, the Washington Post poll that you didn't talk about, the headline is Trump has gone too far. Most say poll registers broad disapproval.
And we are going to go too far if we don't wrap it up now, but we've got more of this to come in the next hour. Don't go anywhere.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, a very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The weather isn't really providing the most pleasant of starts to the week, quite dull and damp for many of us, courtesy of low pressure that is sat close by, resulting in a fairly unsettled theme. There is quite a lot of cloud on the scene first thing this morning with outbreaks of rain. They could be persistent and heavy at times, particularly around some hills across western areas of the UK. It is also going to be a very windy day across the board with gales around exposed coastal and hill areas. If you are a little bit further towards the east, there is the slightly greater chance of you seeing that cloud breaking up a touch more, so that might allow some sunshine to poke through in places, and generally you will stay a little bit drier here as well. But even if you do have the rain and the cloud around today, you will notice just how mild it is out there. Temperatures peaking 14 to 16 degrees Celsius for most nations. That is notably above where we should be for this time at the start of November. The unsettled theme will continue though as we head into the evening. Further outbreaks of rain generally setting themselves up in a slight northeast-southwest line with potential for some slightly drier interludes either side of that, but it's still going to be a very blustery night right across the board. Those strong southwesterly winds filtering in mild conditions, particularly underneath the cloud and rain, only dropping down to around 14 degrees Celsius overnight, maybe a touch fresher where we see some clearer skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland. There is a little bit of uncertainty on Tuesday in exactly where the rain bands will be placed at this time, but certainly at this point, southwest England, southern Wales could see a lot of rainfall during the day. That's spreading its way into parts of northern England later on. Again, it's the southeast England, northern Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland that could stay drier over the course of the day, but it's still going to be blustery for all of us, and temperatures again 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. This unsettled and mild theme is looking to continue right throughout the week, so do get used to it. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Still to come in this hour, Donald Trump is hoping to help Christians in Nigeria who are currently being slaughtered. And also, we're going to be talking about Donald Trump arriving back here in DC. On The Late Show Live tonight.
Counter-terrorism policing were initially supporting our investigation. However, at this stage, there is nothing to suggest that this is a terrorist incident.
A heroic rail staff member is fighting for his life after a mass stabbing attack on a Cambridgeshire train. A 32-year-old man is being held on suspicion of attempted murder. We'll have the latest developments here on GB News. Also, a rise in youth crime has plunged Washington, D.C. into disorder, leading the mayor to impose a juvenile curfew should similar measures work in the UK. And also, the American president has threatened Nigeria with military action over the killing of thousands of Christians. We're going to be diving headfirst into the stories from tomorrow's newspapers, hours before they hit the shelves. We're live in Washington, just outside the White House, bringing you the stories that everyone is talking about here that matter to Britain too, including this. Meghan Markle celebrating the baseball with Prince Harry sitting there looking a bit bemused. Was it all staged? Don't go anywhere, this is The Late Show Live. So a 35-year-old from London has been released from custody with no further action following last night's stabbing in Huntingdon. British Transport Police said that a 32-year-old man is now being treated as the only suspect. Officials say that this man boarded the train from Doncaster to London at Peterborough, and authorities say the heroic rail staff member who tried to stop the attack remains in a life-threatening condition. 5 others have been discharged from hospital. Meanwhile, the train driver, who's been credited with saving lives by quickly diverting the London-bound train to Huntingdon Station after the alert was raised, has been identified as Andrew Johnson, a Royal Navy veteran who served in Iraq. British Transport Police say it's not being treated as terror-related. Let's talk to the former head of counter-terrorism at the City of London, Kevin Hurley.
Good evening.
Good evening again, Kevin. So, as we talked about in the first hour, very difficult to basically take any sort of steps when it's a lone wolf like this, perhaps somebody with mental health issues, perhaps drug issues. We don't know in this situation what the detail is. We saw similar with Kalakane in Nottingham. What questions will be being asked tonight by those in positions of authority in terms of the security of our country?
Well, there's going to be many, but it all comes down to money and what can you practically do. If you just deal initially with the railways, I've heard all the various people saying, where are your scanners and arches and so on? People don't understand the scale of the problem. There are 2,500 railway stations in the United Kingdom. Even if you just deal with small stations, you're talking about 5, 6, 7, 8,000 platform entrances. It's simply not feasible to set up 8,000 knife arches with the staff to run those for 20 hours a day. You'd be needing to recruit another 50,000 people. So those kind of ideas are just really quite silly. The only practical steps I can see in these kind of circumstances are to increase the probability of someone who wants to carry a knife, whether it's to get on a train, go into a shopping centre, causing problems in our towns and so on, is to increase the risk that they will be caught carrying a knife. And the only single thing that will work for doing that is to increase the amount of stop and search that police officers do, which therefore means there's a good chance you'll be caught with a knife. Because the evidence is when police do that, it has a serious impact, a positive impact, on crime and deaths. So, for example, in 2008 in London, when there was a huge surge in youth murders, 27 teenagers murdered in 2008, Operation Blunt 2 was created, which was designed really to do stop and search on target groups within the inner cities of London, with the net result that a couple of years later, you were down to only 8 deaths a year as opposed to 27. A cut of 70%. Problem with this idea of saying do more stop and search is, first off, there's a huge crowd of activists who shriek, this is terrible, it doesn't work, police pick on black youth, etc., etc. They forget, of course, the fact that young black males are 30 times more likely to be murdered by a knife or gun than a young white male. It is essentially them doing most of the dying in our cities and towns, or doing most of the stabbing, as in this particular case, the attacker was, as the case was in the Nottingham matter which you referred to. So unless we get a situation where people are concerned that they're going to be caught with a knife, more important, there'll be a sanction. Many governments have all said, oh yes, we'll get this immediately treated with imprisonment. Well, the fact of the matter is, there are countless cases of people caught in possession of knives for a second, even a third time, with quite long criminal histories, and they're still not getting custodial sentences, even though the possibility exists, whether that's for teenagers or for adults. So the bottom line on it is, if you don't create a deterrent to people who want to go behave in a certain way, then they're still going to go on and do it, and then we won't. And of course, there's another thing that people don't actually think about, that when they talk about the police, because they think the police is some solid body that you'll say, right, police, we want you to do more stop and search. Well, it doesn't work like that, because individual police officers make their own decisions on the street as to whether or not they're going to be nosy and intrusive. And if they choose not to be nosy and intrusive, there's actually nothing anyone in society can do about it, including their sergeants. If they don't have the desire to do it, they won't. And because of the situation that's now been created in the UK, where police officers are becoming increasingly scared of their own shadows, a lot of them, not all, but a lot of them, that they're going to get disciplined or be assaulted, surrounded by hostile crowds if they attempt to do stop and search, a large number of them are voting quietly with their feet and they're stopping doing it. Stop and search is down by 70+% in London from when we had that big successful campaign 18, 20 years ago.
Kevin, I just want to bring in my panel as well here in the studio. Bob Weiner is with us, and also the Daily Mail's US political reporter Victoria Churchill, to talk about this. And Victoria, when you see a story like this from the UK, I know that America is a more violent country, but what are the solutions? What do we do about this over in Britain? Is it metal detectors? I don't think it is. I don't think we've got the infrastructure to make that work in the UK.
Look, we talked about this in the first hour. I don't know if Bob has, for example, tried to, get on the train in London in the theatre district after some shows get out, or, Camden Market when you're there getting your goodies for Christmas and eating your Yorkshire burritos, and then everybody rushes to the train and, they've got half the exits closed and half of them open, like it was last time I was in the UK, this time last winter, just under a year ago now. There's crazy rushes of people. There's already stalls. They do repair work on stairs, and that always blocks exits and entry points for mass crowds of people that want to get out or get in. So I don't think making it harder will simplify that. But again, I think another thing that we talked about in the first hour is having repercussions for petty crimes, because then I think it's the same kinds of people that commit petty crimes see no punishment for their actions, and then they will go on and shoplift, and then they'll hurt people, they'll hurt animals. That's a huge precursor, unfortunately, to these mass acts of violence, because again, I think it shows two things. I think either people aren't completely right in the head, or they don't know if what will happen if there are actually consequences for their actions. And if society shows them that there are no consequences, they will keep getting more and more extreme with their violent acts.
Yeah. Bob, your thoughts on this?
Well, when we wanted to reduce drug use in America, we did a public service campaign. We put a couple $2 billion into it. We made it for matching money. And as a result of those ads, there was a 30% drop in 2 years of drug use, and it's down at half of what it used to be. The other thing is, we have a philosophy in America: see something, say something. Are there signs on every train? Are there signs at the doors? Are there signs all over that say, see something, say something to the authorities? And then the other thing.
There are, but we don't have any authorities. There's nobody to ever tell. So it says, what is it? There's a phrase, Kevin, isn't there, about see it, say it, sort it, or something. I don't know. Again, clearly not very memorable.
And then the third thing is that you do need to do mags in the biggest train stations, and we all said at the beginning, it's impossible to do the kind of mag detectors that you're trying to do at all the airports. It's done now, it's successful, and it's working very well. So you need to start with the biggest ones and do some test models and try them there and see what happens. But you've got to take steps. You can't just say work on the psychology and try the mental health and all. That's after the fact, and it's just too little, too late, and that's more the impossible. That's so amorphous. That's really impossible to try to do. So you have to take the concrete steps, and I listed a few of them that you could do.
Yeah, Kevin, we don't think as far as we know, this isn't a terrorist related attack, and it's going to be interesting to see what questions do come out of this and what politicians do try to capitalise upon it. One of the things I think we're going to see is they're going to start talking about, well, if you just scanned your digital ID going in and out of trains, whether our American guests are aware of this, there's a huge push. The Prime Minister said we're going to have mandatory digital ID whether you like it or not in the UK. This is no doubt going to be weaponised, this event, to try and push that through, Victoria, isn't it? Well, if only you'd had digital ID as he went in, this wouldn't have happened. A load of absolute nonsense, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about that several times in the past couple months on this show, that this digital ID concept is completely Orwellian. We don't need higher levels of government surveillance. We just need, you know, again, as we've talked about, kind of the more libertarian perspective, is we just need greater sense of personal responsibility. And again, I think that personal responsibility comes in with forms of punishment. That's how you build that responsibility. First, you get a slap on the wrist, and then you don't do bad things anymore.
Kevin, I can see you huffing and puffing there. You may not agree with that.
I don't. You know, they're all lovely blue sky ideas, personal responsibility, wonderful. But when you work down in the mud, as I've done all my life, it's very different. You know, this guy is probably, from what we can see, is a psychopath. So the issue of trying to get that person to have personal responsibility is just a no-hoper. You know, the idea of putting a knife arch on bigger railway stations would not have stopped him. He got on at Doncaster, which is a small railway station. And of course, digital ID is not going to work with someone like that, because he's not going to be compliant with an ID card, because he's prepared to bring a knife onto a train and start stabbing people. The point that is important, and one of your commentators made earlier, is that you need to have functions. Both did. You need to have consequences when people carry out wrongdoing, whether it's assault or shoplifting. If there are not consequences, people are going to do it. And both of your commentators have said that. The problem we've got in the UK is we've now become not soft on crime, but the people supposed to deliver for criminal justice system are so under-resourced and have been cut so much by previous governments, and this current government doesn't show any signs whatsoever of dealing with it. So there's no sanctions. And just back to the point here, and you mentioned the guy who ran amok with a knife in Nottingham, and it probably is the case with this one from what we're seeing. You know, when you've got psychotic people who are out in society who should be kept and held in secure mental health hospitals, we're going to continue to get this kind of atrocity occurring from time to time, and it happens all over the developed world, when people who are psychopaths stop taking their drugs and then go run amok like this. So, you know, there are practical things that government could do, which is enhance the amount of secure mental health accommodation available, and increase the amount of supervision of mentally ill people suffering from psychosis who are released out into the community as practical steps to control these kind of people. But, you know, if this guy had been driven by an extreme Islamist mentality, as so many of these attackers are, none of the ideas we've just mentioned would have worked anyway, because if he was inclined to take a knife, you know, if you want to take a knife onto a train and you don't want to go through a metal detector, it's very easy to just move along the edge of the fence, throw the knife over the fence and walk down the platform and pick it up, and you're on the platform anyway. So there's loads of ways people get around it.
Yeah. Okay, Kevin, thank you so much. Kevin Hurley there. Common Sense at Home has said open military schools to teach these little some respect and how to behave. I'll let you fill in the blank. White Witch has said build more Broadmoor hospitals to put people away. Lock up the paedophiles and the murderers. Stop letting them back out after 2 weeks and they might learn. So let me know your thoughts this evening, won't you? And keep your messages coming, because of course we have no ad breaks in this hour, remember. gbnews.com/you'll say. But still to come this evening, the American president has threatened Nigeria with military action over the killing of thousands of Christians. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. American President Donald Trump is threatening to halt all aid and assistance to Nigeria if its government continues to allow the killing of Christians. So in a post on Truth Social, Donald Trump said that Islamists are committing mass slaughter and Christianity is facing an existential threat in the region.
The President has instructed the Department of War to prepare for possible action, saying at least 3,100 Christians have been killed in Nigeria. So let me bring my panel in on this. Victoria Churchill from the Daily Mail. This story hasn't really cut through with the mainstream establishment media, we might say, in the UK, but it's huge online. The images are shocking of women with young babies being slaughtered. And what do you think, or who or how has this got on the radar of Donald Trump, who now wants to take action about it?
Yeah, so a couple of points there. So first off, persecution of Christians is something that the administration paid attention to. Even in the first administration, they had ambassadors for religious freedom, tracking people that were persecuted of religions in other spaces. China, there's also an incident of another pastor, I believe his name is Ezra Jin. He was captured in China, and he has family members here in DC, so they went on kind of a local media tour, picked up some attention from top diplomats, including Secretary Rubio. Huckabee, I believe, was also one that kind of acknowledged that. So the greater issue of persecution of Christians is something that the administration has been paying attention to. And, given their coalitions that they built to win not only in 2016 but also in 2024, that's not surprising because of course the evangelical right is very in tune with this administration. Even now they have a White House faith office, so that community is definitely a group that has the White House.
And will it be popular with the MAGA crowd to go to Nigeria to help Christians?
Well, I think there's a couple of points there. So, I think that aid and assistance part is important. Boots on the ground or military action, that's kind of the other question, right? People will be asking, how is this America first, right? That's one of the criticisms when Trump gets involved in foreign instances is, aren't you supposed to be putting America first? How does this benefit America? So, I think that the soft power, the aid and assistance, that's been cutting that, I think, is good. That's something that a lot of the right, I think, would support, right? This is cuts that he's been making throughout his second term. USAID, organizations like that, they have kind of long histories of, I think in the minds of a lot of people, misuse of U.S. taxpayer dollars. So I think they'll be happy to see even more money staying in the U.S. But again, if that money comes out on the military side, then that money actually won't be staying in the U.S.
Bob, do you think this will go down well with the MAGA voters?
It might, but we're in a situation now where you talk about how you handle, I hate to say this, but the mental health situations. Trump is going war crazy everywhere he can think of a solution to anything. In Colombia, he's bombing and killing. Now it's Nigeria. It's Mexico. Look at this, by the way, off Venezuela. He's got 28 warships that he's put in place. They're supersonic bombers. They're aircraft carriers, guided missile destroyers, amphibious assault ships, nuclear-powered attack submarines. For drug carriers? So this is an outrage of his claiming to be the one who doesn't want to start other wars, and he's coming up with every which excuse now. It's a new toy. He looks at everything as a vehicle for power. Now it's using war that he realizes Congress isn't going to stop him with.
Let's talk to Mark Burns, who is a minister and a pastor of Donald Trump, and Reverend Lady Thompson. Good evening to you both. Mark, if I can start with you. Donald Trump helping Nigerian Christians is apparently because he wants to start a war. Do you agree?
Well, it's amazing how you media do that. No, the president just cares about people. He cares about black people. He cares about innocent people. He cares about whether they're Christians or Jews or Hindus or Muslims. He cares about the innocent. Right now, we need to be very careful to not make this a war against Christians and Muslims versus Christians versus Muslims. This is a war of good versus evil. And right now there are Christians and Muslims in Nigeria that are standing locking arms that are saying these terrorists are killing Christians and Muslims. 52,000 Christians of the last since 2009 have been killed. And right now, the Nigerian government isn't protecting Christians. There's religious persecution that's happening all over the world, including in Korea, with the lockup of Mother Moon, who has been incarcerated, along with Reverend Son, who are locked up for their religious persecution. I just got back from over there. The president just got back from Korea. So he cares. This is not about starting a war. This is about protecting the innocents. And right now, Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria. Mother Moon has been persecuted in Korea. Pastor Son has been persecuted in Korea. so many Christians around the world are under persecution, and I'm just grateful that President Trump, who cares for people, cares for black people, he cares for innocent people, is stepping up to the plate and doing what government should do, and that is protect the innocent.
Reverend Thomas, is that also your take on it?
Thompson is the name with a P. Thank you very much. But my take is slightly different, but along the same vein. Now, it might be talk shop over tea and biscuits in Britain, but the amount of bloodshed in Nigeria over the past 20-something odd years is horrendous. And if the truth be told, when we began to monitor the beginnings of this genocide, which was in the 1996 upwards, not only was it being done deliberately, there was a method to the madness, and there was no recourse for help. Now, they got bolder and bolder through the years, because whatever this is, it's extremely intelligent. And what it has done is that, well, I served as a special advisor to the Christian Association of Nigeria for 4 consecutive presidents. And I remember telling them 10 years ago, it's on record, that in the final phase, it will begin to kill Muslims as well. And I remember the CAN president, the Christian president, saying, oh my God, what do you mean? And I said, listen, we have studied this thing. And I must say there are lots of folks in Britain too who have studied this, people who have joined hand with us through the years to stem the flow of blood. We spent 4 or 5 years traveling the country, setting up early warning systems, teaching people how to record statistics. Not only that, we found out that there was a media blanket in Nigeria that we had to contend with. And I'm talking from 1999. So I've monitored this through the years. And for me, like I said, it's not talking shop. It's not tea and biscuits for me. For me, it's I watch the trickles of blood. I watch them swell into torrents of crimson all over my nation. And then in these final hours, because of the collusion between a political class that is totally without conscience and the compromise in high places, it has come to the point where there's a total denial. Let me sum it up this way. If a medical doctor has a patient who's tested positive for HIV/AIDS, and that same patient also has Ebola, the virus, the same patient has cancer, a virulent form of cancer, shall we then say that the cancer doesn't exist just because there are other diseases? We're talking about existential threats here, matters of life and death. And if I start here now and I begin to call names, all I need to do is pick up my phone and pick up families and ask them to talk to you. Look, we used to be over in Britain many years ago, and we found out that the British palate could not handle the blood. So whenever we came, I can tell you there's an Anglican reverend that we sent over there, Musa Tula. Please do your research. When his people were being butchered, we had to go in there, smuggle him out, and then bundle him off to Britain to come talk to the rest of the Anglican communion. Now, I'm not Anglican by persuasion. I'm just a Christian pastor. But I'm saying to you that what you're looking at is real. Whatever it is that Trump, that you're reporting all over the world, doesn't touch us. Because this is the first time somebody is doing something practical about this grand deception that's covered the face of the earth. Now, don't forget that we're also the country that you claim to be corrupt.
Hang on, I'm just sorry to interrupt you, Reverend Thompson. If I could just, Bob would like to say something. Go on, Bob.
American involvement in something that we have no clue what's going on any more than we did in Afghanistan or Iraq or Vietnam. And you know how all those wars turned out real well for us. This is not something that we should be doing. And this has to come internally from the Nigerian people. There has to be a solution from within. Otherwise, it will be impotent from without.
Well, let me say this. Let me respond to that real quickly. And just to be clear, because you mentioned about President Trump going to Nigeria just to start a war. Listen, President Trump is not former President Bill Clinton. This is not 1994 Rwanda, where President Clinton and the U.S. government failed to call the genocide of the Hutus and the Tutsis, where 1 million black people were killed within 30 days, and the U.S. government failed to step up and do what we could have done to protect those innocent mothers, children, all those AIDS cases, HIV cases that was caused, the hacking of the machetes. No, this is not. This is President Trump's America.
Why
this is the people's America.
And
President Trump is jumping in here to step up in here. The President Trump is putting pressure onto the Nigerian government to do their job. And if they don't do their job, the president is going to go after terrorists. This is not about, the point of it is that this is a president that cares about all people despite the color of their skin. And I'm proud as a black man to sit here and say, this is not Rwanda of 1994. This is not, the president will snuff out evil and would kill terrorists who are terrorizing the innocent. And if we don't stop it, Boko Haram, if we don't stop it, because I've spoken to the president. I spoke to the president today about this very matter. He cares about people. He cares about the innocent that is dying, not some war, but he will snuff out terrorism. Because if you don't kill it now, if you don't cut that snake of the head, it will continuously grow. But we got to make sure that this is not a battle versus Christians versus Muslims. No, there are Muslims that are dying. There are Christians that are dying at the hands of these terrorists. Anyone that doesn't conform to their false ideology of their religion, because the Muslims are dying at the same hand of these people that are hiding behind the Quran. And so the point is the president will wipe out terrorism, and he will support the Nigerian government, or he will wipe them out himself. That's why we should be proud. This is not genocide
of
of 94. This is not the
you really
Rwanda
think he will
situation.
Succeed at that? And you have the,
well,
the data to show
I
that
think
he
he's
can
already
succeed
proved
at
that he succeeded. He's already proven when he took out Soleimani. He's already proven when he took out the Houthis. He's already proven that when he took out the terrorists in Somalia. He's already proven those things. So yes, he will go after the terrorists in Nigeria if the Nigerian government don't step up and protect the innocent people that are being killed, and that includes Christians and Muslims. Then yes, the president will do whatever it takes to protect those innocent people. That's the kind of a president we have, and that's why we are excited about him. That's, again, this is not genocide of Bill Clinton, who refused to call genocide of Rwanda. No, this is a president who don't see color, he sees people, and despite, unfortunately, back in 94, black people killing black people was okay. That's why Bill Clinton and the Democrats didn't call it genocide. But President Trump will step up to the plate and protect the innocent people of Nigeria if the Nigerian government won't step up and do it themselves.
Reverend Thomas, I can see you shaking your head. Feel free to come in.
Yes, please. Let's remember again that for my people, this is not about politics. This is about survival. And the last thing we can afford right now is have people speaking from both sides of the mouth. A few years ago, the American government, under another dispensation, was sponsoring the Boko Haram. Not only that, because media for this local form of the global expression of the resurgence of religious extremism in Nigeria is the fiercest all over the world. And this is reality. The American government at one time was actually funding the Boko Haram and their agenda. And as a person who represented the Christian Association of Nigeria then, we had a huge problem with that. So to have the same country, America, make a turnaround and decry, don't forget, the pacification of terrorists with territories was on the table. These are things that we were fighting against then.
That's not President Trump's
forgive
fault.
me, but Reverend Thomas, but surely that's... Sorry, Mark, let me just come in. Reverend Thompson, you're talking about a different administration and a different time in history. It might be the same country, but this is surely, Donald Trump is doing exactly what you need him to do, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And that's why you find out that unless there's any Christian leader who's taken 30 pieces of silver, or a Christian leader who is not related to the Christ that we profess, you will find out that anybody will realize that these are crimes against humanity. We are talking copious bloodshed at a scale that's unimaginable. Let me tell you something. I heard the figures that the American government was quoting. The reason why we kept quiet is that they are even off target. That's mild. The reality is much worse than that. And now let me say something quickly about the killing of Muslims. The killing of Muslims is because this particular template, it's a hydra. And when this template was being perfected and set into motion in Nigeria, what you have are different cells that represent different strains of extremism. And what you have is there's an infighting amongst them that which of the predators is going to devour the prey on the final count. That accounts for a lot of the Muslim and Muslim deaths that you are seeing, because people are coming in from the West African countries that are not Nigerians. And I mentioned this 10 years ago. You see, I find it quite asinine when we look at the lives of people at this level and at this scale and not realize that we can't afford to play politics. If Nigeria goes the way it's going, West Africa is gone. If West Africa goes, Africa is going to go under. And from that point in time, if you remember the underpants bomber, if you remember the young man who cut off a policeman's head in Britain some years ago, you don't want to see what will happen if the resources of Africa, the masses of Africa, fall under the wrong influence. So what's going on right now is just a war of narratives. But what matters for me is truth. And the truth is this. The quantum of Muslims who have been slaughtered is minimal compared to the number of Christians that have been killed from the 90s, the late 90s. And even then, you want to remember that your folks at one time in Britain did say that we have a corruption problem. Now, the worst form of corruption in this world is the gross devaluation of human worth. So we cringe to hear people who speak like they just don't care. Are we back to the days again when the African, the man of melanin, his life was not the equal of the life of any human counterpart across the world? Is that where we're going back to again? We thank God for the life of Donald Trump.
Reverend Thompson, I think you've painted a very clear picture of the desperation that the country is in at the moment. And Mark would tell you that Donald Trump, the president, may be the solution to your problems. If not the solution, it sounds like he's the best hope you've got right now. Thank you both so much for joining me. Mark Burns there, Minister and Pastor for Donald Trump, and Reverend Lady Thomas. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We'll pick up this again another day. I'd really enjoy that. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live. But that's the home cinema at the house of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, presumably, and that was them celebrating the baseball. And Harry sat there kind of rolling his eyes like, she don't really care about it, does she? Is it just more Meghan Markle being fake? Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, and very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The weather isn't really providing the most pleasant of starts to the week, quite dull and damp for many of us, courtesy of low pressure that is sat close by, resulting in a fairly unsettled theme. There is quite a lot of cloud on the scene first thing this morning with outbreaks of rain. They could be persistent and heavy at times, particularly around some hills across western areas of the UK. It is also going to be a very windy day across the board, with gales around exposed coastal and hill areas. If you are a little bit further towards the east, there is the slightly greater chance of you seeing that cloud breaking up a touch more, so that might allow some sunshine to poke through in places, and generally will stay a little bit drier here as well. But even if you do have the rain and the cloud around today, you will notice just how mild it is out there. Temperatures peaking 14 to 16 degrees Celsius for most nations. That is notably above where we should be for this time at the start of November. The unsettled theme will continue though as we head into the evening. Further outbreaks of rain generally setting themselves up in a slight northeast-southwest line with potential for some slightly drier interludes either side of that, but it's still going to be a very blustery night right across the board. Those strong southwesterly winds filtering in mild conditions, particularly underneath the cloud and rain, only dropping down to around 14 degrees Celsius overnight, maybe a touch fresher where we see some clearer skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland. There is a little bit of uncertainty on Tuesday in exactly where the rain bands will be placed at this time, but certainly at this point, southwest England, southern Wales could see a lot of rainfall during the day. That's spreading its way into parts of northern England later on. Again, it's the southeast England, northern Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland that could stay drier over the course of the day, but it's still going to be blustery for all of us, and temperatures again 14 to 16 degrees Celsius. This unsettled and mild theme is looking to continue right throughout the week, so do get used to it. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
The results speak for themselves. The agencies out there doing what President Trump promised he'd do is make his country safe again.
That was Donald Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, speaking on the record-setting number of illegal migrant deportations during the Trump administration. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But first of all, Erica Kirk, wife of murdered activist Charlie Kirk, has blasted the defence for trying to ban cameras from the trial of her husband's killer. Here she is.
The defense wants to ban cameras in the courtroom. How do you feel about that?
There were cameras all over my husband when he was murdered. There have been cameras all over my friends and family mourning. There have been cameras all over me, analyzing my every move, analyzing my every smile, my every tear. We deserve to have cameras in there.
So that was Erica Kirk saying she wants transparency in the court case to see what true evil is. Let's bring in comedian Paul Cox with our panel here as well. Paul, I mean, for me, there's so many anomalies in this case. I've got so many questions that I want answers to, and actually, I think a lot of people do. And so, cameras in this courtroom have got to be permitted, surely.
Yeah, I've always found one of the great things about the judicial system in the United States of America is the fact that they are so transparent that we often see images, video images, televised images of court cases, huge court cases, from Depp and Amber Heard, all the way up to O.J. Simpson. We saw it from start to finish, and I think it's incredibly important that the world understands what drove this young man to commit this heinous murder in front of Charlie Kirk's family. And I think it's we keep saying this about Erica Kirk. She is right. She's being scrutinised every step of the way. Whatever she does, however she does it, whatever she speaks, however she cuddles someone, she's being criticised or critiqued or told how to do it right or that it's been done wrong. She has every right to see this guy televised, and so do we.
Yeah, I think so. Victoria, if they don't allow cameras into this court case, the continued erosion of trust in the judicial system and, in fact, the deep state, because remember, there are questions being asked about the political motivations of this assassination, the lack of trust will never recover, surely. Victoria, go ahead.
You know, a couple things. First of all, I think that anything that has attempted to be covered up by any kind of actor, whether government or even people in Kirk's own community, that has, I think, lended itself to quite a few conspiracy theories, particularly on the right. I know I've covered some of these theories in my reporting, and people just believe anything that's out there. And so I think the only way that people may potentially believe something, I'm not even saying that they necessarily will, but at least having a little glimmer of hope that they may believe anything regarding this trial is if they can see it themselves. And then, again, I think even if there is footage, that there will be people, nefarious actors, that will try and spin this every which way between here and Sunday. And so also, you know, I think for the sake of my work and your work as journalists, we want this transparency. We want to be able to see everything that, you know, we want the general public to be able to access this, and then of course if they're not, and you know, even as we continue on this reporting, they want to be able to call into question our work, what we put on paper, what we put on air. And so I think that the only way that people can do that and have this open system of commentary and of questioning, which I think, you know, healthy skepticism I think is healthy, but there are, I think, some people that take it too far. And so I think that there should be transparency. And again, I think Erica Kirk is right. People have wanted to know every little detail about her life, about her husband's life. Even, you know, in the weeks and even years leading up to his death, there have been text messages that came out about conversations that he may have had multiple years, you know, even 5-6 years down from his unfortunate murder.
Bob, Turning Point USA, the organisation, the Christian charity movement that Charlie Kirk worked for and headed up, they are in a precarious position now, and I don't know how familiar you are with some of the speculation online with this, but there was a massive increase in support for TP USA and TP UK as well, in fact, in the immediate aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death. But they do risk sort of losing the internet if they don't start asking certain questions and if they don't start asking for more transparency. And this court case is going to play a big part in, I think, not only justice for Charlie, but in the future of that organisation.
That's true, but I don't think our job is to build the organization up for the sake of them wanting to have a bigger footprint. I don't think that's a fair thing to do. I think it was outrageous what happened. I mentioned on an earlier show here that I was the youth vote director for the Democratic National Committee at the Watergate when the 18-year-old vote first came in, and I debated the president of the Young Americans for Freedom, which was sort of a little bit of an equivalent, although Victoria, I know you disagree with on that, but what was sort of an equivalent to what Charlie Kirk represented. He represented a forceful, charismatic attraction for young people. And you're not going to get that, apparently not by his wife, apparently not by anybody else. So a lot of this is single person focused. And you have to have the transparency in court. But I think the biggest thing they've got to find out, because it usually takes 2 years until they finally issue a report, and then by then it's too late and nobody cares, is how law enforcement screwed up and how they didn't get close enough and how they didn't know the places where people were shooting from. So that is the key.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Stay with me, all three of you, please, because Donald Trump is gearing up for a massive immigration blitz. He's got plans to hire 10,000 new agents to hunt down and deport what they call here, of course, illegal aliens. White House border czar Tom Homan says that they're going to blow historic deportation numbers out of the water, targeting more than 10 million people who've crossed the border.
It's working. Record numbers of removals, arrests. Right now, we already have a record number, historic number of arrests and removals this fiscal year, and would bring on 10,000 more agents by mid-January. And we're going to blow this historic number out of the water next year. The results speak for themselves. The agents out there doing what President Trump promised he'd do is make his country safe again.
And here was American President Donald Trump on the same topic earlier.
Recently, Americans have been watching videos of ICE tackling a young mother, tear gas being used in a Chicago residential neighborhood, and the smashing of car windows. Have some of these raids gone too far?
No, I think they haven't gone far enough because we've been held back by the judges, by the liberal judges that were put in by Biden and by Obama.
You're okay with those tactics?
Yeah, because you have to get the people out. You know, you have to look at the people. Many of them are murderers.
Paul Cox, let me bring you in from London. I mean, our inbox, whenever we cover this topic, just bursts into life with people saying, please, can we have Donald Trump to solve our illegal migration problem? Just react to that, if you wouldn't mind.
Look, it's kind of music to my ears politically. Look, we've had successive governments in this country that have run on manifestos that said they were going to do just this, solving just this problem. Not one of them has done it. So it's fascinating from this side of the pond to watch on and see Donald Trump and ICE delivering and truly delivering on their illegal immigration crisis. I mean, it's down to zero from what I can tell. Now, I'm not saying that it's not squeamish to watch some of the actions of ICE, but this is the unpleasant side of years and years and years of allowing these things to proliferate. We'd have exactly the same problem in the UK. We'd have to be just as strong. And of course, peace through strength is very much a Donald Trump mantra. And it's the only way, unfortunately, to deliver this successfully. What we need in the UK is something very, very similar. As uncomfortable as it might make the average British person feel, exactly what we're seeing ICE do is exactly what we need. And it's unfortunate to see mothers. It's unfortunate to see women on the floor there being dragged away. But if you are an illegal alien or an illegal immigrant, as we would call in this country, you've already committed the crime. So, as squeamish as it is, Donald Trump's right. They've got to keep going. They're in a battle with their own judicial system, and he is delivering on his manifesto promises.
And Bob, he's having to clean up the mess that Biden left with so many people coming over the border. Isn't that what he's doing?
I totally agree that Biden blew it and Harris blew it on the border crossings. If he had stopped and zeroed out the border crossings, he would be considered a real hero. But the real headline in the Washington Post today, Trump has gone too far, most say, poll registers broad disapproval. And that's because of the kind of things that you just showed, the slamming on the ground and the picking up of mothers who've done nothing wrong and are helping. Trump even said in the beginning that he wanted the agricultural workers protected, and then he backed off that. So you can't have it both ways. You can't overdo what you do that you do well. And that's what he did here. And that's a real danger. And that's why we'll get into the elections. But the elections that are going to happen, the 5 big elections that are going to happen on Tuesday, they're going to show, they're all projected to show between 8 and 15-point Democratic wins, all of them. And if that happens, you're going to see a very different kind of show that you're going to have to do the day after Tuesday, when that mood is now clear about what the mood is against Trump going overboard.
Is that right, Victoria? Oh, hang on, Paul. Let me just get Victoria's assessment of these elections on Tuesday, including including New York. Because I just want also just to clarify a little bit of what that means for a British audience who may not understand the intricacies of the electoral system here.
Yeah, so we've got a slew of different elections. We've got New York for the mayoral race. We've got New Jersey, a gubernatorial race. We've got Virginia, just a stone's throw away from where we sit here in D.C. They're having elections for governor as well. And, you know, I think in part it will definitely be a referendum on Trump.
And California on the gerrymandering, that they're going to compensate for the Texas gerrymanders.
But there's also a lot of questions about whether or not these candidates, particularly some of these Democrats, what they are actually running for, because a lot of the times they are trying to paint the Republicans as in bed with Trump. And that, again, I think really leaves a lot of questions as to what these Democrats are actually running for, what are their policies. And I think across the board, really, a lot of Democrats have not had to answer questions about what their policy positions are, what their track records are, whether on the state level or the federal level. Both members of Congress, actually 2 former roommates, 2 Democrats that are running for governor now in Virginia and in New Jersey, they both have records quite extensive from their times in the U.S. House of Representatives, and for the most part, they have not been answering any of the questions on the minds of voters. And so I am interested to see, you know, whether people will be more fired up to vote against Trump, particularly in Virginia, for example. We have a lot of federal employees that have been furloughed or fired or aren't getting paid right now due to the government shutdown. But, you know, kind of the question is, will that be enough to put Democrats over the top? That remains to be seen. In Virginia, that looks most likely that at least the top office will go to Democrats, but we also have down ballot races for lieutenant governor, attorney general. But states like New Jersey, it may be a lot closer for the Republicans.
Paul, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, by the way, good evening, Victoria and Bob. Lovely to see you again. Bob, I don't think I've ever seen you sit still. Incredible energy. But what I would say, Bob, is you said they've done nothing wrong, which is very interesting, because are you saying that illegal aliens are innocent? Are you saying that they've committed no crime at all?
Did I say that, or did I say that Trump did a good job on closing the border and Democrats blew it on that? I think that's what I said.
Well, you did, Bob. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. I absolutely love you, Bob. It's just that you did say that, but you also said that they did nothing wrong, and you were talking about the woman on the ground. Now, I'm with you, Bob. They're squeamish to look at. I'm uncomfortable with that. You know, I'm a man who grew up around a lot of women. I'm surrounded by women now. I don't want to see women thrown to the ground. But unfortunately, it's part and parcel of this, and they've committed a crime, haven't they, Bob?
Well, you know, he's taking people from the courthouse where they go for an asylum hearing and grabbing them from the asylum hearing, which they're supposed to do, and then taking them and trying to deport them. And by
Bob,
the way,
I don't think you had an answer.
Abrego Garcia, they still can't figure out what to do. He was 16 when he was maybe a member and tried to escape it, and that's why he came here. You can't say you're a gang member because you were trying to escape the gang. So
Bob, is coming into this country illegally a crime? Yes or no? No long-winded answers here. Yes or no? Tell it to us straight.
But if they've committed no crime while they're here, they're valuable people, and they can spend enough years to make them actually legitimate. And that's the way this system has worked in the
Bob, that's a long-winded answer. That's not what I asked for.
Well, it may not be the answer you wanted.
It's
not an answer, Bob.
It just sums up it actually. But it does actually sum up. He says if they've come here illegally, they haven't done anything wrong, then you say they are a valuable member of society, and that is pretty much sums up the difference between. Actually, I don't like the left-right dichotomy. I think it's outdated. But on this issue, I think it does actually work, because what you've just said then is they haven't committed a crime if they've come over the border illegally. We're not quite there yet in the UK. We need to start having that conversation about whether people coming in the UK, we've gone so far the other way now that we don't even use the term illegal migration. Our socialist Prime Minister, Bob, now says irregular migration. We have a Home Secretary who talks of irregular migration, and you talk about illegal aliens, which to our ears is incredibly dehumanising as a term. But I do wonder if we are going to start coming over in your direction within the next couple of years up to the next election.
I think Starmer and Farage both have the right plans on immigration. They are both tough, they are both strong, and I think they both have valid points.
Starmer hasn't got a plan on illegal migration. He hasn't got anything.
I've seen him in the message, in the questions to Parliament, and he is very strong on it.
Well, he talks in platitudes.
Okay.
He talks in platitudes. He says it's a scourge and we have to do something about it, and it's problematic and it's worrying. But we've got to smash the gangs. That's what he keeps talking about doing, smash the gangs. And when it comes to smashing people in this country, Donald Trump basically takes out Venezuelan boats. He literally drops bombs on them. I know that's more of that's more drugs as opposed to illegal migration, but the difference is profound. It is absolutely stark. Where to leave you on this? We haven't got an awful lot of time left. Just briefly, Victoria, we've got these elections on Tuesday. Let's think about we're not going to have time to do it. Not to worry. Paul Cox, I will see you next week. Thank you so much. Don't forget, we have got the New York mayoral elections this week as well, which will be fascinating, because New York is about to get their equivalent of Sadiq Khan on steroids, frankly. And many of the problems we've seen in London, America might have to brace itself for. But I might be wrong. Bob, am I going to be wrong on that?
Well, what everybody forgets is that he said that on his planks, he has to phase many of them in gradually. And he understands the reality of that. He's going to be a very good mayor and going to surprise everyone.
And you have been very good panellists. Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Bob. I will see you tomorrow night, midnight UK. See you then.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, a very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather update provided by the Met Office. The weather isn't really providing the most pleasant of starts to the week. Quite dull and damp for many of us, courtesy of low pressure that is sat close by, resulting in a fairly unsettled theme. There is quite a lot of cloud on the scene first thing this morning, with outbreaks of rain. They could be persistent and heavy at times, particularly around some hills across western areas of the UK. It is also going to be a very windy day across the board, with gales around exposed coastal and hill areas. If you are a little bit further towards the east, there is the slightly greater chance of you seeing that cloud breaking up a touch more, so that might allow some sunshine to poke through in places, and generally will stay a little bit drier here as well. But even if you do have the rain and the cloud around today, you will notice just how mild it is out there. Temperatures peaking 14 to 16 degrees Celsius for most nations. That is notably above where we should be for this time at the start of November. The unsettled theme will continue though as we head into the evening. Further outbreaks of rain, generally setting themselves up in a slight northeast-southwest line, with potential for some slightly drier interludes either side of that. But it's still going to be a very blustery night right across the board. Those strong southwesterly winds filtering in mild conditions, particularly underneath the cloud and rain, only dropping down to around 14 degrees Celsius overnight. Maybe a touch fresher where we see some clearer skies across Northern Ireland and Scotland. There is a little bit of uncertainty on Tuesday in exactly